Now, you may well have heard the rumours that we've got a very special guest joining us this weekend. Here he is, it's Martin Donnelly, ex-Formula 1 driver. Martin, you've been involved in the series previously with a little bit of instruction and what have you. You used to race Lotuses a long time ago. How's your involvement and racing come about this weekend?
Well, my involvement is through Paul Golding. He asked me to come along. I've had a weekend off. He said, would you like to come along and participate in our meeting? Julie came along with me and the children, and we're having a great time.
And in terms of racing these cars now, up against obviously what are potentially classed here as amateur races, how are you finding that?
Every bit is more difficult as when I was a professional driver. But as I said before, you know, racing's racing. F1 gets a bit monotonous. Okay, now they've got a silver car and a red car winning every other weekend. But I mean, it's follow my leader. In this form of motorsport, I mean, people on the spectator banks come to watch motor racing at its best.
And Martin Donnelly finds himself with a lot of work to do in this 20-minute race. He will line up 15th, but it's Andrew Walsh then on pole position. David Skeggs with him at the front of the grid. Russ Treasure in his unfortunately unreliable car is third. Fingers crossed for better fortune this weekend. He's out-qualified the likes of Malcolm Sanders, for example, Nick Kay and Steve Williams. Donnelly then, Class A pole position. He starts 15th ahead of Michael Edwards and Gavin Kirby. And lower down the order, Doug Setters is 21st on the grid. Paul Quinn only 30th. One of the more experienced drivers in the series, and therefore you'd expect him also to be not only better placed than that, but also making progress as the race goes on its 20-minute course. And at the very back of the grid is Sarah Crowder, one of the mainstays of the series this year. So, for pole position, Andrew Walsh, he's had one win this year, remember. David Skeggs with him at the front of the grid. Russ Treasure and Malcolm Sanders are on row 2, and that is Chris Pearson's car being pushed off the grid even before the start of the race. Desperately disappointing for Chris Pearson then. The lights are on red. Who's going to make the best start as the lights go out? Great getaway there, look, by Steve Williams from the third row of the grid, carving his way through. Russ Treasure a bit slow off the line, and it's Andrew Walsh then who leads down towards Redgate for the first time. David Skeggs will tuck in behind him, but on the inside, Steve Williams, I think it is, slots into second place. Good getaway from the third row of the grid. Everybody files their way through Redgate and then onto the top of the Craner curves for the first time. Andrew Walsh has lost, in a sense, a bit of his class opposition this weekend. There's no Chris Randall, there's no Simon Scuffham, and so Walsh leads, and the Brands Hatch winner is pulling away already. Look at that, though, for side-by-side second place. Williams on the inside goes through, moves himself ahead of Treasure. Fourth is Skeggs. In fifth place at the moment is Malcolm Sanders, and everybody else pours their way through the L hairpin for the first time. Up through Schwantz curve, Russ Treasure back into second place, then he pushes Steve Williams back down to third, and Andrew Walsh, the race leader, for the moment is not escaping. Skeggs is fourth, fifth is Malcolm Sanders, but now Andrew Walsh getting into his stride a little bit. He makes his way up towards the double apex right-hander of Coppice, still with Treasure and Williams going after him. Andrew Kell trying to latch onto the tail of Neil McKean as they go through Coppice, but down towards the chicane for the first time. Walsh leads, Treasure in second, and he suddenly slows. Look, Russ Treasure had all sorts of problems with the reliability of this car all season so far, and it looks as though something has gone horribly wrong once again. Nick Kay runs a little bit wide, and there even wider. Jamie Allison, Martin Donnelly there scrabbles up on the inside to take a place away from Anthony Clark. And all action, end of that one, as Treasure, I'm afraid, yet again heads for the pit lane. First name term with just about every pit marshal in the country, it seems. He's had so much ill fortune with that car this year, and once again Treasure looks as though he's retirement. Paul Quinn in 15 you saw going around Redgate as the leading gaggle of cars turns its way then now up through the L hairpin on board with Martin Donnelly. He turns his way through the L hairpin, that's Anthony Clark back ahead of him. As they sprint their way now up towards Coppice at the head of the field. Now Andrew Walsh is very definitely in charge. He's building the leaders. That's Sarah Crowder getting it all wrong, coming down to the Craner curves. Whoops, round she goes. Look at this though, three abreast coming into Redgate. Neil McKean on the inside squeezes ahead of Nick Kay. On the outside of both of them now is David Harvey in the 340R. This is Harvey's view. And as they drop down to the Craner curves, Nick Kay now is right on the tail of Neil McKean through Hollywood, and then down towards the L hairpin they go. That three-way battle starting to close a little bit on David Skeggs. Skeggs in turn is now trying to fight back on Andrew Kell. Kell having worked his way through ahead of him. Kay clips the curve down at the L hairpin. He's got David Harvey chasing on behind him as they go left on the Starkey's Bridge up towards Schwantz curve. All the way down through the order. There are great battles still raging on. There's another place being gained. Back on the inside is Paul Quinn moving himself through. Up towards Coppice, side by side, another battle set to be resolved with Martin Donnelly in the thick of it. You're on board with Donnelly there as he taps the tail of that rather sluggish Elise ahead of him. Come on, says Martin. Down towards the chicane, Andrew Kell there on the inside of Malcolm Sanders, and he goes through. Andrew Kell gains the place, And Malcolm Sanders slots back in behind him. Over the line they go. This is Donnelly's view back at the chicane. He hugs the inside line. That prevents Gavin Kirby from finding a way past him. And these two having a great battle. Gavin Kirby's going to dine out on this for weeks, isn't he, about how he took on ex-Grand Prix racer Martin Donnelly. Kell runs wide, so does Kay coming out of Redgate. Kay gets all crossed up, and that forces Neil McKean onto the grass. That's Kay's view. McKean rally crosses back onto the circuit. Kay loses out to David Harvey, then fights back up on the inside, overlapping through the crater curves, and Kay goes off, straight off onto the grass, look. He's going to have to back off the throttle, otherwise the car's going to swap ends on him. And Nick Kay, when he was trying to go back ahead there, has ended up running out of road and slowly has to edge the car back onto the circuit as Donnelly is back ahead of Gavin Kirby going around Redgate. Fantastic battle this between the pair of them. Getting back in the right direction as Jamie Allison gets a little bit carried away at the old head, but he's off a big tank slapper. It went left, it went right, it goes right the way around. And Jamie Allison should be able to rejoin from there, albeit that will cost him a few places. Paul Quinn, number 15, dives then in towards Redgate, and right on his tail in number 13 there is Matthew Bartlett. On board now with BJ Chong down towards the old hairpin. He's closing on a gaggle of cars ahead, which are getting it all wrong. Round goes 44, that's Andy Gordon spinning. There was another one involved in that as well, but Gordon is facing the wrong way, look. Now, if he can't get the car out of harm's way, that is going to interrupt the race. Yes, the safety car is scrambled, it's going to pick up Martin Donnelly. Therefore, the race officials are going to have to let everybody through, so he can pick up the proper race leader, Andrew Walsh. Safety car for the pit lane, and Andrew Walsh, having been slotted in behind the safety car, now accelerates away. The race is 20 minutes. It's therefore against the clock, not a set number of laps, and even though Steve Williams is a lot closer to him now, it looks as though Walsh is odds on for a second win of the season. On board with David Harvey, working his way past one or two of the slower cars. Graham Walsh just being lapped as they go down towards Redgate. Harvey runs wide, you can hear him rattle up onto the curb, but Andrew Walsh is set for the checkered flag. It's going to be a second victory of the season for Andrew Walsh. He won the very first round of the series at Brands on the Indy circuit. He's going to win the series' first visit to Donington as well. The Lotus on track in his trophy. Race 1 at Donington goes to Andrew Walsh. Second is Steve Williams. The gap at the end of the race being just over 3 seconds, with Andrew Kell for third. There he is crossing the line. Now, meantime, is Martin Donnelly going to be able to hang on to his Class A lead? Yes. The car has gone quicker, dare one suggest, than ever Paul Golding has made it go, but Martin Donnelly brings it through for a Class A win ahead of Gavin Kirby. Confirmation there of the top 10. Walsh from Williams, from Kell, first, second and third. Malcolm Sanders is fourth ahead of Neil McKean, and then David Harvey with Anthony Clark seventh. Mark Gooday is eighth with Mike David Skeggs, and 10th going the way of Martin Donnelly. And Martin Brundle is here, partly to cheer on his son in the Formula Parma Audi races, but also he's going to make the presentations to the winning drivers. The 3 class winners will be on the podium first of all. Andrew Walsh, the winner outright, also takes Class C honours. Martin Donnelly, the Class A winner, looking somewhat embarrassed with Martin Brundle presenting the trophies. And Steve Williams is victorious in Class B after another good drive, and that's the third win of the season for Steve in Class B. That's the first podium then, the 3 class winners. Class A, Martin Donnelly victorious, ahead of Gavin Kirby, Michael Edwards and Stuart Kirkbride fourth. James Knight fifth in class. Behind Steve Williams, Malcolm Sanders and Neil McKean second and third in Class B, ahead of Anthony Clark and Mark Gooday, with Walsh, Kell and Doug Setters being the top 3 in Class C at the end of the first of 2 races here at Donington Park.
Andrew, you started from pole, best lap on the first lap I think it was as well.
Yeah, it was either the first lap or the first one after the safety car. It might have been the safety car one because Steve was back up behind me again. Right. So better just disappear in case I make a mistake. And that was it then.
Certainly into the first corner though was pretty interesting, right?
Yeah, these little light cars are quite quick off the start, aren't they? But as long as I can stop them getting around me in the beginning, then you're away then.
Steve, you had an absolutely blinding start. Well done to you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, starts have always been particularly well. Don't qualify particularly well. I think their superchargers take a bit of time to wind up, so we can get off the line.
So Martin, your first race actually in the Elises, how did you go?
Really well, thoroughly enjoyed it. Obviously the different speeds and classes, we got involved with a few of the quicker cars, and I got wrong footed a few times, so a couple of guys got past. But I mean, I had Gavin in car 95 all over me at the end of the straights, so I had to try and keep him honest, so he kept me on my toes.
So you're a lot quicker than some of the guys into the corners?
Just obviously natural skill and ability.
So there we have it, with Martin Donnelly proving that he's still got what it takes. Let's find out how he gets on in the handicap race, which is coming up right after this break.